All right. I am at the cave entrance. And I'm going to go in for a bit. Making pretty dark in here. I'm in. Okay. I'm in. And it is dark. Okay. Let's take a look at the ceiling. Yep. A lot of blackness. I don't know if that's from the old background or what. Let's take a look. Well, I got another area here. I'll go down these steps carefully. It's very dark. Okay. This is where that other entrance was. Let's see if I can get better. Here. Wow. It is dark. This is it. The cave that they took refuge in. Okay, I'm going to shut this off for a minute. See if I can get some light.
Okay, go.
And that's the exit entrance. Okay. Now the ceiling looks a little strange, and I don't know if that's from fire or bat guano. It's like segments of black rock. But, you know, the ground is just pretty normal. But you can see over here, there's no black stuff on this rock, which has the same segmentation. So it could be from a fire. You know, here's where it gets black in the ceiling too, as well. And pretty dark over here. So maybe they threw the fire in from that entrance over there. Interesting looking face and hand formed on that ceiling. I'm going to try and get a picture of it too. And I do have this EVP. And I really don't get any readings in here. Okay. Okay. So, yeah, really nothing, okay? Although, that was something really strange there on that ceiling. That one and that one. Strange. Okay. Thanks. Okay, so that is Lovelock Cave. And you can see over here, You know, they had a lookout area, and had a good view if something was coming up. Pretty darn good view. Okay, that's it. Lovelock Cave. Okay. This is archaeological excavation of Lovelock Cave. Began in 1912. Archaeologists worked in dark and dusty conditions and found large areas disturbed by the earlier work of the guano miners. The first excavator, Llewellyn Loud, was joined in 1924 by archaeologist Mark Harrington. Together they excavated 40 storage pits inside the cave. Within one pit was the now famous cache of ancient duck decoys. The storage pits held items such as fishing gear, sagebrush, bark sandals, leather moccasins, a mouse skin blanket, shell beads, a carved wooden grasshopper, and finally, woven wickerwork basketry. Overall, more than 20,000 artifacts were discovered. The storage pits were 2 to 4 feet deep. They were lined with grass or old basket parts, filled with goods and sealed with grass and stones. The top of each pit was located level with the cave floor, which varied significantly over time. By comparing these pit top levels and the styles of artifacts, archaeologists were able to assign time periods to each pit. The cave revealed many different phases of use by Native Americans. Someone has crossed that off. Interesting. Divided into what archaeologists call stratigraphic layers. These layers form from sediments and other materials that accumulate on top of the living spaces. By comparing layers and artifacts, animal bones, coprolites, which are fossil feces, and fossil plants, archaeologists were able to determine changes in ways of life and cultures over time. So just take a look at that. I just want to show you that someone scratched off Native Americans. Obviously, they feel the same way that I do, that these were, Phoenicians or Europeans or the Sami, a group that is being hidden. So that is it. Lovelock Cave. Okay, I'm at the Carson City, Nevada State Museum. It's very dark in here, and this is the replica of the Lovelock Cave. There's no mention of any red-haired people, and they basically have something about thieves of the past. Yeah, and then they have a cave stratigraphy. Now they're stating that 2,000 years ago is the earliest dated Lovelock Cave duck decoy, significant but short-lived drought. And then they go into the populations of Nevada going back all the way to 11,000 years ago. But very dark replica, I guess, of this Lovelock Cave. So we're going to see what else is in here. And it's really hard to see what they're displaying. Okay, it's so dark. But it's some sneers and some big horns and tools made out of them, and some grass. And then these are some moccasin hide bundles tied with snares. Okay. Okay, I have found an exhibit for the Lovelock Cave finds. I want to point something out. There is a human face sculpture, and they've got it very dark in here. It's hard to see, but this does look to have some elongation and strangeness to that face. Next to it is an animal figure, And they have a beer. And I'm sorry about the reflection, but that's the way it is in here. They have an owl. And then they have some of these, they call them larvae. I think those are for the pestles, probably for grinding. Down here they have some more animal carvings from the cave. A horned toad, bighorn sheep, frog, another frog, a rabbit, and then this duck decoy is a replica of what was found in the cave. And then this is a large decorated Lovelock wickerware burden basket. So let's see if I can get most of it on here. Now, there's no mention at all about the mummies that were found, the red-haired rumors, nothing at all. But there is a face. And it is just not easy to get with the darkness in here in this Nevada State Museum and the way that they have it. But look at that. It's just a little bit strange shape. I'm going to try and see if I can get whatever I can get of it. But, behind glass and all that. Okay. And then over here they have a little bit of a story about Spirit Caveman. In 1994, the Nevada State Museum radiocarbon dated a burial recovered in 1940 from the Spirit Cave near Fallon. To everyone's surprise, Spirit Caveman lived over 9,400 years ago. At the time of his death, he was over 40 years old, elderly for any culture in the world at that time. He wore a rabbit skin robe and fur moccasins. Very sophisticated, labor-intensive basketry accompanied his burial. He differs from other prehistoric and historic Nevada Indians. Instead, Spirit Caveman shares characteristics with some Asians and the 9,200-year-old Kennewick man found along Washington State's Columbia River. The fate of these early Native American populations is still unknown. Beginning in 1995, many Indians wanted all Spirit Caveman studies stopped. Yeah, of course they do. And his remains reburied. State administrators halted consumptive testing of human remains in the museum in 1999. Under One Sky originates from this controversy and seeks to present diverse viewpoints in hopes of understanding one another's positions. And it goes on to talk about the Native American views on Spirit Cave Man. They say Spirit Cave Man was taken from his eternal resting place. Yeah, okay, right. Within the ancestral territory of the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe. Today, our former lands are under the jurisdiction of the Bureau of Land Management, and they control his fate. The Spirit Cave remains and funerary items have been housed in the Nevada State Museum since their discovery in 1940. Carving testing was conducted in 1994, which dated the remains to over 9,000 years, and then the remains suddenly became important to the archaeologists. Only in 1995 was the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe formally notified of the existence of these remains. Since 1996, we have been exercising our right under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act to have the human remains and funerary items from Spirit Cave returned to us. The scientific communities and tribal communities disagree on the fate of the man from the Spirit Cave. The scientific communities want to conduct further scientific research on the remains and objects, while the tribes want to rebury the remains and associated items to allow the individual to continue on with the spiritual journey. Time will tell the outcome. And then it says the remains of Spirit Cave Man and many other ancient Native Americans are still stored in the museum in accordance with the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act of 1990. The law may eventually require museums to return all of the remains back to the Indian tribes. Scientists, however, maintain that there is much to learn from studying these ancient people, including advances in medicine. Okay, this is not the Paiute's ancestor, and they are preventing the truth from coming out as far as I'm concerned. And then you can look here at these Clovis points, 10 to 12,000 years ago, found here. And it resembles the European Solutrean toolkit. Okay, and look at that beveled point. Look at that. I'm going to see if I can back up and get a better picture. It is very dark in here. There's the sandal, the twining. See if I can come over here and get a better, there you go. That's the part of the sandal. And then the mat. Now, if you come over here, all of a sudden here's the Paiute, or they call it the plain weave, and there's a difference, okay? Now they've got a Lovelock wickerware and coiled, so, except they wouldn't put the time periods on these, so you can't really do as good of a comparison as I'd like to. Okay, so over here, okay, here's a 9,000-year-old granite, and obviously the grass. I don't know if that's real, but they're saying it's 4,000 years ago. Okay. Okay, and then some part of a robe, the rabbit skin, and then Humboldt points. Now, some of them are 7,000 years ago. Those are the ones that begin, to start to look like the Clovis. And then it goes out to 2,000 years ago. And those are more, triangular. So there is a difference. Okay, and I don't see any information or symbols that could lead me, to kind of determine where maybe they came from. But I'm going to go back here for a second. Very interesting, this face, and I'll give you one more shot of it. Okay, it's on the left. It's the white one that they're saying. Well, I don't know. Human face. And then on the right, it appears that they're saying the right one is an animal figure. Okay. This, you can't see it real well, but it is a little elongated. I'll see if I can get some pictures too on it. Okay, I'm on the more traditional side. This is some Paiute examples of a twined water bottle. It says willow pine, pitch, cloth, straps, Paiute. And then a winnowing tray and a coiled cooking basket. Okay. Over here, they have some interesting pictures. And the one that I find interesting is this teepee-shaped home that they say is a Paiute winter house near Pyramid Lake, 1903, a photograph, Nevada State Museum. Now, it resembles the teepee. And in some of my other work, I showed the Sami, the Nordic people, have the same thing. Now, these people have some cloth, but it appears to be made mostly out of grass and reeds. And then they have their burden basket. I would assume that's for collecting things. Okay. So who were these people, these mysterious red-haired people of Lovelock Cave? Well, I've got several different thoughts on the situation. Now, when I went down to Las Vegas, I went about an hour away to Valley of Fire. And there was a different set of petroglyphs there, and they were attributed to the gypsum people, which apparently may have existed somewhere around 6,000 years ago. So I'm not sure if the two were related. They didn't find any bodies down there or in Sloan Canyon, which is just outside of Las Vegas. However, the petroglyphs in the Valley of Fire included something called an Atlatl. The Atlatl originated out of Europe, and it was an ancient hunting tool. I've been told by an anthropologist out of the Nevada State Museum that they have found several Atlatls near Lovelock Cave. And one of them, I believe, was at Winnemucca
lake not too far away. So I'm starting to wonder if there was a connection between what I found out in Valley of Fire and Sloan Canyon. Now, at the Valley of Fire, some of the petroglyphs that I found, I believe, include something that I attribute to as Phoenician or Viking ships. There are two ships, a very large one that has what appears to be a dragon's head on it and water symbols below it, and then another one next to it that's a smaller ship with also water symbols underneath it. I talked about this on my blog and in some of my books, and we'll get into some different videos down the road about it. But I have a question as to whether they came from Phoenicia. And in Alabama, at Moundville, they have something called the rattlesnake disc that has something inside this horned rattlesnake, which could also be seen as a dragon, possibly representing a Viking or Phoenician ship, but inside it is a hand with an eye, and they call that the Hamza. The Hamza is Middle Eastern, comes out of that area, which would be include ancient Tyre, and that symbol goes back to the goddess Ashtaroth, who was a half sister of Cronus. So you have all kind of timelines surrounding this Nevada area. The Lovelock cave culture, some estimate, go back about 6,000 years, possibly. It is said to be a distinct culture from the Paiute, who are claiming that it's their ancestors. There are differences in the basketry and some of the other things, and the bodies as well. Whether they're related to that spirit cave mummy is unknown, because they won't let anybody do any kind of DNA testing as well. So we don't know. And, I have to wonder how much travel has been going on, how far back. Out in Sloan Canyon, I found letters that appear to be Phoenician. And I did write to the University of Chicago and showed them these petroglyphs. And what I was told is that, it's hard to tell on some of these petroglyphs. They don't really have a very accurate way of dating or proving out their authenticity. But it looked vaguely Levantine, and that would put it out in the Middle East. But the professor could not say for sure. So the question I have is, whether these were Phoenicians or possibly Vikings that came later, but I'd almost say Phoenicians because of the time period. We know that the Vikings had come out and tried to establish colonies in America around 1000 AD, but these cultures are going back much further. Now, also, I do want to point out, I've done another video that I talk about Sarah Winnemucca's story about over 2,600 of these red-haired people being exterminated and taking their last stand in the Lovelock Cave. In the book called Lovelock Cave by Llewellyn Loud and M.R. Harrington, they actually suggest that possibly some of these red-haired people escaped. And I'll get into that later as I do another video, but and a book probably on this. But the question is, who were they? Where did they come from? And they seem to have come from a time much more before the Vikings came over. And the question is, were they red-haired? Were they related to the Ainu out of Japan? I've seen some later studies now with the Kennewick man after a $2 million lawsuit suggesting that the DNA is possibly even Polynesian or from the Ainu in Japan. But further study is needed. But it took several anthropologists and a legal team to sue and have the right to examine Kennewick Man, and $2 million later in legal fees, $2 million plus. And right now, the mummies that are in the museum and the University of California, and I know there's some out at Smithsonian, cannot be tested. So we can't know for sure until the DNA tests are allowed, and that is a political situation with NAGPRA, and it's going to have to be approached politically. In the interim, as I'm doing my research, as I said, an Atlatl was found near this area, so I almost want to connect it to what I found over in Valley of Fire and Sloan Canyon. As I said, there's some Phoenician symbols out in Alabama, which is out on the east part of the United States versus Nevada, being out in the west. How connected were they? We don't know. We do know one culture, that culture was Mississippian, which came thousands of years after this supposed red-haired race out in Nevada. So some of the possibilities I'm thinking are Phoenician. If Spirit Caveman is over 9,000 years, that's getting close to the time period of the Cronides. Those following my research know that I've pulled out some information from the ancient scholarly works out of the Loeb Library from Harvard that gives some timeline indication of their global travels that could be anywhere from 12,000 to 25,000 years ago to spread their agricultural cults and end the problem of cannibalism. Okay, now that we've brought up that subject, the story with these red-haired people is that they were cannibals. In the Loud book, he goes into some of the other tales that Sarah Winnemucca didn't talk about was that they were supposedly fighting, and some of the men, the red-haired men being captured, were castrated because they were taking some of the women from the other tribe, and they were fighting back and forth. They wouldn't combine. And thus, the cannibalism charges came about after that. So we don't know how bad the warfare got and who these people were. So, perhaps they were Phoenicians. Perhaps they walked over. The Sami culture has some similarities, although I'm getting some comments on some of my other research that they don't want to be necessarily associated with Native Americans. They have their own culture, their own words, and that is something I'm going to research further. But there are some DNA tests that say that the Sami were connected to ancient Europeans. It's really got to come down to DNA testing to be allowed. And the next thing I want to say is these mummies that were retrieved were in that cave, and then Spirit Caveman was found outside that area in Fallon, Nevada. The story of Sarah Winnemucca is that they were killing these people along the Humboldt River, and a few of them escaped to this cave and were finally allegedly exterminated. I have to wonder if there's more bodies not in that cave, but near the Humboldt River, in the area, yet to be discovered, just as Kennewick Man was. And the area in Nevada, you got to be careful in. They have a lot of rattlesnakes. So if you're out walking around and looking, you have to be cognizant of that issue. But I have to wonder if there's anything left outside of this cave based on the story of Sarah Winnemucca. So the other thing I want to mention is the Anastasi. They were said to be cannibals as well. And it was a culture that may be linked to the Hopi and maybe not. But they were cave dwellers, and it's as if they were trying to protect themselves up in the caves. Well, and building the I'd say not cave, but more rock dwelling up in the cliffs. But the question is what was going on with them, and I wonder if they were connected in any way. All of this would have to be done, after NAGPRA is overturned and the scientific community is allowed to do a scientific investigation. But I do believe there's connections. I believe there's connections between the Phoenicians, which ended up migrating into Europe as well. They're all connected. I've proved that out through my studies at the Loeb Library and the Cronides and their travels, and the multiple partners that they had, and many children that they made. But I think there was a lot of travel over 12,000 years ago. Some think this tribe may have walked over through Asia. There is something called the Malta boy, which was found out in Siberia, that does indicate a combination of European and Asian DNA. So, and we also have the Tarim mummies as well. So we know that they were traveling that way. We also know they were traveling by ship from Phoenicia. We just won't know until DNA and allowed scientific study is being made. So in conclusion, what I found out is due to the so-called Native Americans in NAGPRA, scientific study is being halted. No one has gone in and looked at this cave to see if the black mark is from something called desert varnish, or if it's from fire or something else. That's one issue that has to be looked at. I've been told that the Nevada or the Lovelock culture is distinct from the Paiute, and the artifacts are distinct. So there is something different that was going about them. They were not related. So that needs to be looked at. The DNA needs to be looked at these mummies that are waiting to be tested. Connections between them and the Mississippian people need to be looked at due to the Middle Eastern symbol of the hams out in Alabama. And then there's the Paracas culture as well in Peru that are said to have had red hair. That can be looked at as well. They may all be connected. The symbolism is similar. Some of the things, of the artifacts are similar to cultures in Europe, specifically like the Atlatl, for example, and some of the other things. So we need to really look at this and do a further study. But it is a political issue and a hot issue at this point. So at this time, I'm done with this presentation of Lovelock Cave. However, I will continue with my research and presenting that via book, video, or blog. Thank you for listening.